Hello everyone, and welcome to Catching Up with the Clemenses, brought to you by the Mark Twain House and Museum in Hartford, Connecticut. My name's Erin. I coordinate school programs here.
And I'm Jody. I care for the museum collections. In our last chapter, we talked about how indoor plumbing, having pipes that brought water into and took water out of your home, changed what people's homes looked like. We also talked about how it led people to start making, buying, and using toilet paper instead of old newspapers, which could get stuck in the pipes. But while we talked about why people like the Clemenses started using toilet paper back then, we didn't talk about why the toilet paper in the Clemenses bathroom looked like this. The toilet paper isn't the only thing in the bathroom that might look different to you. In this episode, we're going to talk about why we put things in the containers and forms we do, and how those containers and forms shape the kinds of things we make. Let's take a closer look. What kinds of things do you use in the bathroom? Can you spot any of those things in this bathroom?
If you were looking for dental floss, I bet you're able to spot it. People had always used things like toothpicks to get food out from in between their teeth, but dental floss like this, made of silk, was a pretty new thing when the Clemenses lived here. Today's dental floss is made of nylon, not silk, but it's packaged in a pretty similar way. There are other things in here that look familiar. You may not be able to read this if you don't speak French, but I bet some of you guessed that this was perfume. And while I bet you don't call it toilet powder, you may know what this is too. Today we call it baby powder or talcum powder. It isn't always in something that fancy, but it's sold in a similar container today. But if you were looking for toothpaste, you might not have seen it. That's because it wasn't in a tube like we use today. Instead, it was in this tin. Can you think of something you use that you know used to look different? Was it the thing itself that was different, or was it just in a different package?
All of this leads us back to why the toilet paper looked like this. It's important to remember that the thing itself, dental floss, toilet paper, toothpaste, and the way the thing is stored, packaged, and sold on a spool, in a book, on a roll, in a tin, or in a tube are two separate things, and they need to be grown, built, invented, manufactured, and used by people. The short answer to why toilet paper was made like this back then is that this was the easiest for all people involved. It used factories, machines, and methods already in existence, and it produced something that people could easily use. You would just tear out a sheet when you needed it. Since people were already used to using newspaper, they were used to this product coming in single sheets. But toilet paper today comes in sheets too, right? You just tear one off the roll like this. You can do that because a man named Seth Wheeler figured out how to make it possible. You could already make paper in one long strip, but in 1871, the year the Clemens family moved to Hartford, Seth Wheeler figured out how paper factories could perforate those long strips. To perforate means put small holes in something, and he figured out if you put a bunch of small holes in a line across the paper, it would stay together but could be easily torn off when you needed a piece. Without perforation, you would have to tear the paper apart, or remember to bring a pair of scissors with you. 12 years later, in 1883, Wheeler came up with another idea that helped create the toilet paper you're familiar with today. Toilet paper is really soft, so if you make a roll of it with a hole in the middle, that hole would just squish down and won't really turn on a holder. Wheeler came up with the idea of putting a piece of stiffer paper in the middle of a roll that would eventually become this kind of thing, so that paper would stay in a nice round roll and fit on a holder.
Toothpaste shows us a different set of problems to be solved and a different kind of creative thinking. When Sam and Livy Clemens were growing up, they probably used tooth powder to clean their teeth, which may have also come in a tin like that or a canister like this. You could buy it from a big company, but you could also buy it from your own dentist or pharmacist who would make it themselves. Around the time the Clemenses moved into this home, a Connecticut dentist named Washington Wentworth Sheffield developed toothpaste, but it was still usually packaged in a wide tin like that. everyone in the family would dip their toothbrush into that tin. Why would people want to come up with a new way to package toothpaste? Dr. Sheffield's son was in Paris when he saw artists squeezing paint out of metal tubes. He thought it would make a much better way of storing and using his father's toothpaste. Soon, you could buy toothpaste in tubes, though people like the Clemenses continued to use toothpaste and tooth powder in tins, and Dr. Sheffield kept selling these things alongside his new product. Can you think of something you use that comes in two different forms? Maybe even something you use in the bathroom? So why do we make things in one form or another? And why do we package or store them the way that we do? Some of it has to do with making sure the people who use those things can use them easily. What would happen if you put toothpaste in a glass jar like this, or in a cardboard box like this, or in a bottle like this? Before you had a tube like this, something you could squeeze, you had to make toothpaste or powder that people could use easily in the kinds of containers you had available, like the tin. Packaging is also there to make sure things are safe to use, especially if it's a while between when you make them and then when you use them. For instance, one way of keeping food safe is to can it, a special way of sealing fruits and vegetables in jars or cans, like this jam. This is a thing you can do at home. This was made at home. But at the time the Clemens family lived here, people had only been buying food in cans for about 50 years. In an earlier episode, we mentioned that the Clemens family often bought fresh tomatoes. Why would they do that, but then also buy tomatoes in cans like this? What container or form you put things in is also shaped by how far it needs to be moved from where it's made to where people are going to use it. Putting things in glass jars might be fine if you're going to use them at home, but why might it be better to use something like this if you were going to transport peaches or tomatoes from California to Connecticut? Seth Wheeler, when he was doing his inventions, noted that one of the reasons a perforated roll of toilet paper would be better is that the same amount of paper took up less space as a roll than as a book. Why would that be better?
And then there's the fact that both the packages we put things in and the things themselves have to be made by people. Toothpaste tubes don't grow on trees after all. Until someone figured out how to make toilet paper like this, the easiest way for people to make, package, and sell toilet paper was like this.
Something we think about a lot today when we talk about packaging is waste. They didn't have plastic back when the Clemenses lived here, but we do. And the same plastic packaging that makes it easy, safe, and inexpensive to transport and use things also means that a lot of plastic gets thrown away and ends up in landfills and in the ocean. Recycling some of that plastic can help, but using less of it in the first place is a better idea. The Clemens family probably didn't think that much about reducing the amount of packaging they used, and the term recycling wasn't really a thing that people used back then. But reusing packaging is a very old idea. For instance, all of these glass jars can be used over and over again to can different things. You may have seen something like this in your home, or maybe the home of your grandparent. It's a tin of butter cookies. But in a lot of places, if you open this up, it'll have sewing supplies in it. Can you think of anything that you reuse in your home like this?
In this chapter, we learned a lot about how the things we use in our homes look different in the past. Here's another one. Can you figure out what this might have been used for? Here's a hint. The Clemens girls would have used it to make one of their favorite Christmas decorations. See you next time.
Do you have a question for us? You can send us an email at catchingup@marktwainhouse.org or send us a letter at the Mark Twain House and Museum, 351 Farmington Avenue, Hartford, Connecticut, 06105. Along with your question, tell us your first name, your age, and what city or town you live in. If we feature your question in a future video, we'll be sure to give you a shout out. Don't forget to like this video and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.
We want to keep our educational materials accessible to all, but while these videos are free for you, they're not free for us. If you want to support the creation of Catching Up with the Clemenses videos and other educational programming here at the Mark Twain House Museum, please follow the link in the description below to donate now.